All right. Hello and welcome to the Revenue Revolution podcast sponsored by Jointflows. Today we are joined by Frank. It's great to have you here, Frank. He is the co-founder and CEO of Salesforge. He's also an investor in multiple companies as well, I believe. But I'll let Frank introduce himself to the audience as well. Anything you want to add to that, Frank?
Hey guys, Frank, been in B2B sales for over a decade, whether that's frontline sales reps, doing a bunch of cold calls, sending a bunch of cold emails or templates, millions of them probably by now. And I led a team of about 50 last year. Then I exited the gig, decided what shall I do with myself, and I thought actually the problem that I see in the sales technology sort of landscape is that all of us are kind of sending a bunch of cold email templates. And this is why I decided, there has to be a better way to do things kind of going forwards. And I thought with all that hype with sort of ChatGPT, etc., and the output that it's giving is pretty bad. So that's because it has to be engineered in a particular way that it actually provides a lot of value for sellers. So I built Salesforge that allows you to essentially send unique emails to a lot of recipients out there at scale. So we built essentially sort of a one-stop shop for that. Similar to many other platforms that are sort of, so essentially we are in the sales engagement category. So the only thing that the platform really needs are leads and a bunch of mailboxes, and then off you go. You can be sort of set up in a couple of weeks, and then you can start to sort of sequencing at a relatively good scale, meaning that you also actually don't need to have any, that many sales reps. So that's actually another sort of value prop. So if anybody's, listening, is a CFO or head of sales, and if you're only thinking that you're only able to attain your target with X number of reps. So I used to have this problem essentially last year. There was no technology that would allow me to drastically increase the output of a single sales rep. So this is why I decided to go on this journey, essentially build this software. So we just launched a couple months ago. We already have over 80 companies aboard. Things are going really well, and we're using also our own software naturally to acquire users. And arguably, I would say, because I'm in the cold email, and I also had a team that did a lot of cold calls, I would argue that actually cold email is probably the most profitable and the most scalable way to acquire business these days. Because the other options are, so you can do a bunch of cold calling. It requires you to hire a lot of people. Then on the inbound side, you would probably give to Google, Facebook, millions and millions of dollars. So that's also not very efficient because you're competing in an ad auction with other softwares of all random companies. In cold email, if you have a good list, if you figure out a way to scale and stay out of spam at the same time, so that's a challenge too. And then the third one is like the copy. What is it that you're sending to the user? I would argue is the most profitable way when it comes to scaling, especially if you're bootstrapped like us for now. So that's what we're all about.
Amazing. Sounds exciting. So I want to talk a little bit about your journey. Obviously, you've led big teams as well. So the last team you led was over 50 people, and now obviously you're a very early stage startup. Talk a little bit about the challenges that you're facing going from more of a, I guess, process driven. I'm not sure how process driven you are now, but what usually happens when you go from a big team to a smaller team is the processes are somewhat different. You're probably a little bit more ad hoc now. You have the ability to shoot from the hip a lot more as well. So talk a little bit about that. What's that transition been like for you? What challenges have you faced, and where are the advantages of that as well?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're leading a sales team of 50, sort of on a Monday morning or afternoon, you get together with your director of revenue ops, with your head of SDRs, head of account execs. You discuss, the pipeline, all the various metrics, and then you figure out the priorities for the week, and then whether you're behind the target or whether you're close to it. And then right now, I'm literally a one person responsible for all stuff related to marketing, sales, etc. So as an early stage founder, naturally, what you do, maybe some of you have heard, you do things that ultimately don't scale. So your network, I don't know, via WhatsApp, LinkedIn, etc., capitalize your network, because especially people that know you, and if you're credible in the space, if you started to build a sales software, having been in sales for over a decade, you're probably building something good. and it could apply to any other industry, right? So because you have the domain expertise, you understand, the pains of, say, sales development reps or business development reps, whatever you want to call them. You understand the pains of account execs, and then you're like, okay, so you've seen this pain systematically, whether that's in one company or the other company that you worked in, and then you look at other companies, the way that do things, and then you're like, there has to be a better way to connect with your prospective buyers. So this is where I thought to myself, people are not, people especially in sales development are not really good copywriters. In some parts of the world, actually people don't speak fluent English as well, so they struggle. They make some grammar errors, and people don't really know how to write emails, so they have to be like really short and snappy. Mainly the reason being is that over 60% of emails are currently being read on a mobile device, so it has to fit on the screen really. And you have to sort of the CTA has to be a soft CTA rather than a hard CTA most of the times if you want to drive the most possible replies, etc. So all these things, like every single sort of person has to think about it, and I thought there has to be sort of a more of a systemic way that can be powered by AI. So that's why with all the hype with ChatGPT, etc., we decided to leverage it and then apply that in the world of sales technology. The thing is, back in the days, not back in the days, I mean, over the years, you've probably seen a lot of AI and machine learning stuff in the world of marketing. So Facebook, Google, etc. So I used to work for Google as well for a while, and everything was sort of machine learning based, etc. And none of that exists in the world of sales. And the problem is in the world of sales is just all the data sets, so meaning all the companies, when they have any data in Salesforce, etc., it's sometimes not very structured or labeled. It's pretty much, and then you don't also have enough data to run any sort of machine learning or AI. Whereas, let's say in our case, because we have a bunch of companies, we'll have 10x more companies, hopefully by the end of the year. We will be able to structure all these companies, label them, and run machine learning models and also generative AI models against what's called cluster of companies that exhibit similar traits, and being able to power significantly, essentially, better conversion rates than anything that folks have seen previously. So that's ultimately the direction that we're moving. We're starting for now with cold email and messaging, etc. But we are moving to more sort of sophisticated capabilities on the data front to help sellers sort of sell better. So, yeah.
That's very interesting, because I come from the same space, and we do have a similar journey. So like Hitesh and I, obviously, we're part of the corporate world, and then launched our own gig. Sales professionals turned essentially tech founders. Where do you see is the biggest barrier for people like yourselves or ourselves to launch a company and take it to market?
I think the first main barrier is if you're good in sales, you're making a bunch of money, and you just don't want to exit, right? So you're happy to start another gig, work there for a year or 2 or 3, and then move on to another gig and sell another software, right? So I used to do that for quite some time. So and then you're thinking to yourself, maybe it's time that you build your own software, and I think so that's the first sort of kind of, I think, mental blocker for a lot of people, because I do believe that folks that are in sales, they can be either good CEOs or COOs, etc. They're very strong, have very good people skills, etc. So they are definitely sort of founder or startup material. It's just that when you're really good and you just you're selling a software, you make a bunch of cash and you just want to exit, don't want to exit. So I think the other sort of challenges is like people in sales, like they're good at selling. They know probably the technology that they're selling or whatever they're selling. And then you generally want to come up with a problem that you want to tackle. Well, in my case, that's in the world of sales, so you have to have sort of domain expertise. And sometimes maybe folks in sales don't necessarily have a domain expertise in a particular area, and that's a struggle ultimately when it comes to sort of creating a startup, I would say.
What about barrier to technology? So like in Hitesh's and myself case, like we don't know how to code, right? So we are not technical founders.
Yeah.
And to find a technical founder can be quite challenging at times.
Yeah, exactly.
what's your experience on this?
So yeah, and actually I don't code. I know, I think, a bit of code simply because I used to work for various tech companies. So you kind of were sort of solution engineer at some point. You had to be sort of, to kind of figure out what's happening in the code a bit. And then you're like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not going to basic stuff only. And then I would have a solution engineer or somebody helping me to kind of sort this out. So the same, when you're starting a company, you're like, so because I have some sort of basic understanding in tech, I was like, this probably can be built. So, and then, yeah, you're missing definitely a tech co-founder. That is definitely the hardest piece. And guess what? I think if you've been in sales, most of your kind of network is either your prospects or a bunch of other salespeople around you. So it was exactly the same problem for me. So I had nobody in mind that could be a good co-founder. So there's few options then there on the table. So one of them has worked, weirdly enough. One of them is you go through one of these sort of pre-seed accelerators. So in London, there's one called, for example, Antler. There's another one called Entrepreneur First. There's quite a few of them, but these are the two main ones. They're pretty good. And this is where it's like a YC kind of stuff, Y Combinator kind of style, where you just, get together sort of 40, 50 very smart people. Some of them are kind of tech co-founders, and then you're meant to sort of match together and really start a company. So kind of putting yourself through a sort of a process can help you a fair bit. And then the other way is what a lot of folks are doing is, so on Y Combinator, you have this sort of matchmaking platform that allows you to match, let's say, with techies out there, right? So, and funny enough, it has worked in my case. So yeah, there was this one guy that approached me in Y Combinator and said, hey, listen, I like this idea, what you're looking to build, let's chat. So we did. Interesting enough, he also had a mate as well, where they essentially know each other from the first grade. They went to the same uni as well. They built a few things, and then nothing really took off. So they understood they need a commercial co-founder. And then when they met me, I explained the idea, like, wow, I've never heard anything like this. He said to me, and then I was like, so you want to build this? Sure, I'm happy to start tonight, he said. And I was like, no, we need to do a bit more. So let's do a few more user interviews. Let's really figure out, let's scope this out a bit more. So that's what we did for, a couple months. Then we shipped the MVP back in March. And then, we released our fully fledged product 2 months ago in beta, and we're out of beta as of last week. So, so that's kind of our short journey. So we did try and actually raise some money. Is also probably the other problem for a lot of folks potentially. But what I ended up doing is, because with Bootstrap, we're essentially using our savings to run the company until sort of maybe seed stage, and then we'll raise at that point. So, but yeah, there's actually quite a few examples if anybody's thinking kind of to start a company in the sales space, technology space. There are quite a few examples of Bootstrap companies out there as well. So one example would be in France. So for example, Lemlist is an example. I think I don't know how much they're making right now, but somewhere probably around 50 million in ARR. So and they only started sort of 4 years ago. So just to give you, it gives you an idea that it is possible to bootstrap as well. So I wouldn't shy away, and especially if you're in sales and you probably saved a bit of money and you don't have a sort of a quite a big mortgage on your shoulders, then maybe consider that, because that would be I would say probably a very good investment from what is that you want to do next. And and I think it also depends how long you've been in sales. So so let's say if I've been, let's say, in sales maybe just for about 5 years, maybe I wouldn't have the urge to start my own company. But because it's been a while, right? And you're like, okay, so the other option was to become a head of sales for another company, and actually I did already have an offer on the table. And I said to that CEO, hey, listen, let's park this for a while. Are you okay for me to start my own company and see how it's going to go? And he said, all right, sure. So what happened in the end is I didn't join the company, and I still kept on, plowing forwards with Salesforge. Because, over time, by speaking to more and more of your ideal customers, so other salespeople, heads of sales ops, VP sales, CEOs, even, etc., you get conviction that what you're building will make a huge difference. I think one way to look at, any kind of software you're looking to build, like if you're building what already has been built, don't do that. So it has to be something very sort of different to anything that exists, because most markets that you're entering from a technology landscape, a lot of them are red oceans. There are a lot of competitors. You will have to compete against them, even though they're big markets. Why would anybody buy from you? You need to figure that out. So our kind of clear kind of positioning is like, everybody's sending templates. We will give you a way not to send templates. And that should give you a better reply rate with the product, and B, actually better email deliverability, because the big guys, Google, Microsoft, when they see that you're sending static content, they can actually scan for that. So actually that slightly negatively impacts your email deliverability. Hence, by sending unique content that's generated by AI in full, then that will help.
Absolutely.
So just to give you maybe an I spoke to, let's say, one guy yesterday. He was head of sales, and I think he said to me he was using HubSpot as an example. They had 40% open rate, and he thought that was good, because he thought the benchmark is about 30-40%. So he's like, oh yeah, I'm doing pretty well. And then when I showed him our benchmarks roughly, and also the real performance data in the software, that's where I was able to show sort of 70-90%. And it opens really the eyes to folks that there are a lot of softwares with big names, etc., but it doesn't mean it's working for them.
Absolutely.
Right. So
yeah, I think what you've done great there is you've built a product that solves a problem that you've actually faced yourself, and that's similar to Mick and my journey as well. And we're quite fortunate where we managed to find a tech co-founder within our own network as well. So that's worked out well. One of the things that I've realized as part of that journey is self-awareness is extremely important. What are your competencies? What are you strong at? What maybe do you require support on? When do you hand things over to somebody else, and so forth? Talk a little bit about that part of your journey. Where are you realizing, hey, you obviously have a strong sales background, so your commercial acumen is probably strong. You're probably great at problem solving and presenting and so forth. But maybe when it comes to the finances, for example, putting together the structure of the company, maybe that might be a challenge. Talk a little bit about the challenges that you faced and how it is you've overcome those as well, in terms of maybe where your competencies don't lie.
Good question. So, when you go to one of these sort of accelerators, people try to put you sort of in the bucket, sort of what type of person are you? I just say I'm just a sales guy. That's what I am. No, not commercial guy, specifically sales. So that's what you're strong at. Yeah. So, I can definitely do also marketing. So I do that right now. But you have to be able to, to tell yourself, what is it that you're good at? And for me, it's just doing a lot of sales. And specifically anything that has to do with outbound, really. So I don't shy away right now, even doing cold calls, messaging people on LinkedIn, any other channels, really. Like, it works. It always has worked and will work. And just being persistent in that. So, and yes, of course, you have to reflect upon yourself. And what is it that you're not good at? So first thing straight away is I can't code, so the engineering part naturally. I think when you're building a product where you have domain expertise, let's say the product itself and anything around the product, yes, there's because ultimately we are also we're building the product for ourselves right now, and we're using our own product, right? So we know exactly how it has to look like. We know exactly where the buttons have to be, how the sort of navigation flow potentially has to be, etc. So I'm sort of semi product manager internally,
the way it goes.
So which is good, I think, overall. So it's called dog fooding, essentially, right? Using your own software to grow, essentially, and that you'll be able to see bugs very quickly, iron them out, and just upgrade the software with the right features that are really needed in the platform. And I think what I'm really strong at is essentially executing anything where I see an opportunity, but it also can go the other way, where you maybe have moved too fast into a particular direction. You have not thought through things. So that's where my other co-founders are really good at. They will say, wait a minute, Frank, and then we would discuss that. So it's important, right, when you're looking at a founding team, that you complement each other. So maybe somebody's more extroverted, the other person is more sort of introverted even, and that's good actually. Some people, maybe one person is more analytical, the other person is more into design. So we are actually very good as a team. So there's 3 of us. One actually does all the architecture of the software, the whole engine, everything, and then me, marketing, sales, so essentially everything that's non-tech. Including running the company, finance, etc. Even though maybe I'm not too good at it, but it's fine. You can't be good in everything. And then the third guy, he does product design and front end. So he literally takes care of how everything looks in the app and also how everything looks on the website. And there, as a early stage startup, especially being bootstrap, you can't fill all the shoes. So here, naturally, you're either outsource, or you don't do anything about it. I mean, that's also an option, right? So, because you just don't have the capital, maybe it's not a priority right now. Yes, things won't be perfect, but it's okay. I mean, it's something that you will sort of sort out later on.
And Frank, there's something you said around dispatching responsibilities, but also essentially creating an environment where you can share feedback, and whether it's positive or negative. What's the schedule like internally in order to maintain this communication and improve it?
So we just use Slack, and we just talk in Slack, and I think that's the best form of communication for me personally, and I think for the other guys it just works. You don't have to like we discuss everything that needs to be discussed. If there's a specific feature that we decided to build to unlock a big client, we just file a ticket in Trello. We have our own Trello board. It's free. Slack is free as well. It just you need the right tooling that doesn't break the bank as well, to get it and kind of put it in the right place. And then actually we need also feedback from the users. So we're using a tool called Canny. Canny allows you to aggregate feedback from users. It also integrates with Intercom. Intercom is a chat app, if those that don't know. And then users can file, the requests, etc. And then we can review those requests, and then we can see whether we can action them as part of our kind of near-term product roadmap. But ultimately, it allows you to, you can vote for specific features, and then, once we decide, okay, we're going to build this, we just put a ticket and a timeline against that, and we communicate that to the client. So we definitely take into account all the feedback. We are trying to be sort of data driven. What is it that the users want? But still, our sort of vision is to send a lot of good emails. Not just a lot of emails, but a lot of good emails. And so that's our kind of North Star, is actually more emails. So the more emails we send, the more money our clients make, and the more money we make, because it's a consumption-based model. We don't charge for a seat or users. It's just a consumption, meaning more emails being sent, essentially. And that works better because you can align also from a sort of pricing standpoint. You can align the usage of your platform with the value that your users are getting, which will be pipeline coverage. So ultimately, when they see more better pipeline numbers, they're happy to pay more for software that was able to deliver that, right? So, because I also see, look at other softwares. So I do believe that that seeds is essentially an arbitrary metric. That's not the way I think some of the software should operate kind of going forward. So specifically in a space where, in the sales engagement space, so I think there will be a bit of a disruption, because I do see also other companies. So HubSpot were the first ones, actually. So right, so they charge per contact, and so we have a sort of somewhat similar model to HubSpot.
And Frank, you spoke about your model, which is great, and the company. In terms of your actual process of onboarding clients, and the sales process in particular, where are you seeing challenges in that aspect? So you've booked your meeting now, you're doing your initial discovery call. Maybe where are there challenges that you're experiencing in that maybe you wouldn't have experienced before?
So the onboarding process for every software looks different. So in our case, the whole onboarding process actually lasts a couple weeks. So there's you need to do a few things to be successful in a so the challenge in itself is you're not able to necessarily sort of start right away in terms of reaching out to a lot of people. You need to set you need to do the kind of the baseline setup in the software, and so that is sort of painful both for the client and for us, essentially, right? Because they want to see the value as quickly as they can from a software, but they can't, and they know it's good for them. So that is definitely a bit of a pain. So kind of talking about the onboarding, but I mean, generally speaking, right now, I speak to every single user when they want to sign up. I walk through them all the challenges that exist in cold email, how the software helps them to tackle that. What is it that we do? What is it that we don't do to help them understand what is, what else they will need to get to make them successful. And I think that the value add, generally speaking, is being able to leverage the expertise of that founder, essentially. It's not just about software in many cases, it's about the team that's behind it, and then the knowledge that has gone into building the software, and then the knowledge that you can capitalize on to be successful with that software as well. So I think the challenge also, generally speaking, when you also onboard different types of client is, I mean, they're all kind of different. Everybody's selling different things. And as an early stage startup, you will take any client on board that's willing to pay. That's what you generally do. Yeah. And then after usually sort of maybe a year or two, then you realize, listen, these are really good clients. These are really bad clients. Let's not focus on these clients. And then that client segment becomes your kind of ICP in the future. But currently we're onboarding all types of clients. Anybody that does essentially cold email and believes that it can help them, we'll onboard you, of course. But I think in the future, the way that, as part of kind of evolution of a SaaS company, you just focus on the customers where they're going to see success sort of as quickly as possible, or you're going to see the most success, right, with the software, and then you're not going to necessarily focus over time on those where they may not be successful with the software. So because I don't believe that there's a software that's kind of solves a pain for everybody. You solve usually a pain for a specific persona out there. So we don't know yet, I think, who are our kind of best clients right now, like who we should be really going after. So I think that's a challenge as well. But you also can't say no to somebody on a call if they want to subscribe as well.
Sure. Awesome. Well, I think we're almost out of time. It's been great hearing about your journey so far, Frank, in your new venture. It sounds really exciting. But before we do wrap up, we have a tradition on the show, which is to ask the same question to everybody, which is, what is your best memory in sales in your career to date?
I think usually what you would answer if you've been in sales is the biggest deal that you've closed. So that's actually probably my best memory on the individual level. But then on a sort of, let's call it managerial level, is seeing other people succeed. So I think my best memory and sort of that form was in my last gig working for a company called Watergraph, seeing the success and seeing people, employees essentially becoming better at their game over time. And that's what I would call success at that particular level. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Frank. We appreciate you joining us even, and taking time out of the day. It's been great having you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Frank.